So what is going on with Jalen Sundell? What's going on, everybody? Good morning. Happy Tuesday. Hope you guys are doing well today. If you're looking for the training camp wrap-up, that was posted yesterday, late afternoon or early evening. So if you haven't seen that video yet, go check it out. It's the video uploaded on this channel before this one. Again, trying to upload the day of, and that seems to be working pretty well. So we're going to rock with that for a while. And seems like at least some people are benefiting from it. And I don't think anybody feels like it's worse because it's pretty much the same information. Maybe it's digested slightly less, but for the most part, I don't think we're missing much. So I'm going to stick with this for the time being. But that's not what we're going to talk about here. Today, we are going to be talking about Jalen Sundell because there's something interesting going on with Mr. Sundell. And we got to get into this a little bit because there's been an interesting energy around this guy ever since he showed up in Seattle. And I can't say I saw it coming. He was not one of the undrafted rookie free agents from last year that I was highlighting. He wasn't one of the guys that I viewed as a future relevant piece. But for whatever it's worth, at the moment, the Seattle Seahawks seem to like what they see with Jalen Sundell, and Corbin Smith kind of outlines the general gist of what we're going to talk about here. So let's take a look at these tweets. The further we get into this training camp, the more it feels like the Seahawks want to find a way for Jalen Sundell to start. Christian Haynes also continues to work at center, which bears watching. Snaps were much better today. So that second part, not really germane to what we're talking about, although I will say I like the fact that Haynes is getting a chance at center. But here's the kicker. Here's the next tweet from Corbin Smith. What's interesting about this is that, as I wrote in my takeaway notes today, Oluwatimi had a great 1v1 pass pro session today and seems to have center on lockdown. So, according to Corbin Smith, the center position, while it does nominally have a competition, looks like it's going to go to Oluwatimi. He looks like he's the best. He looks like the guy the team has the most faith in. Again, I'm fine with that. I think that Oluwatimi is an adequate starter in this league. I don't know if he's going to rise above that, but I'm fine with that. But the interesting question is, well, if Jalen Sundell, or is it Sundell? I'm actually not entirely sure, but if Jalen Sundell is also a center, then where does that leave him if Oluwatimi's got center on lockdown? The answer is here. Sundell got more right guard run today than Haynes with the first team. Could he have a shot at pivot spot again? That's a plot twist. I'd certainly call that a plot twist. Jalen Sundell getting the right guard job. That is not something that I thought was on the table, and I thought a lot was on the table at that right guard spot. I had Christian Haynes, I had Anthony Bradford, and I had Sato Lomia. These are three players that the Seahawks actually drafted. These are three players that either naturally play right guard or actually spent basically their entire career at right guard in college, or both. And it looks like there's a chance there's a fourth guy who's going to sneak in here and take that right guard spot. And it's not even Gray Zabel, who would have been my fourth pick if somebody else was going to be the starting right guard. It's Jalen Sundell. So that's certainly interesting. There are a couple different ways to read into it, and we're not really going to know which way is the correct way until the season starts. Hopefully, this is because Jalen Sundell looks really, really good, and they're so blown away, they just can't keep him off the field. So they're sitting there thinking to themselves, well, we can't play him at tackle. Both our tackle spots are locked up. Zabel's locked in on left guard, so it's either center or right guard. And Oluwatimi is good enough at center to where we need to go ahead and just give him that spot so he can gain familiarity. Therefore, right guard's all we can do. Possible. Certainly possible. The other possibility is that everyone else looks so lackluster that Jalen Sundell is becoming the most appealing option by kind of process of elimination, which, I mean, again, we're not going to know which one it is until we actually see these guys play in games. There is a third angle that I'll get into in a minute here, but I will say this. If Christian Haynes or Anthony Bradford or Sato Olomea do not get a starting job on this offensive line, and they're all sitting on the bench to start the season, obviously you want your best players to play wherever they got drafted. I'm not denying that for 1 second. If Jalen Sundell at right guard is the best way for us to have a good offensive line and win games, then it doesn't really matter that he was undrafted and the other guys weren't. I will admit, though, that complete and utter whiff on Christian Haynes is going to hurt. That's a third-round pick. And I say that not just because we made the pick, but because I really liked Christian Haynes too. And if he cannot hack it in the NFL, that really surprises me, because I'm not saying I thought he was some first-round caliber player, not at all, but I thought he was pretty much a sure thing. And when I say sure thing, I mean as a player who can get it done as a starter in the NFL. What we're hearing so far is that he just doesn't have it. Like, he's not strong enough. That's a surprising one to me. And maybe I'm taking it a little personally because I thought Haynes was money in the bank coming out of college. But it also would hurt a little bit to have missed on that one. Regardless, that only matters if none of these guys are good. If Sundell is really good at right guard, then it doesn't really matter, right? Yeah, at the end of the day, you want the best guy to win. But it is very interesting that it seems like it's a realistic possibility that Sundell could win. Let's talk about him as a player for a little bit. Try to boil down to the actual meaning of it all. First of all, Jalen Sundell was here on the team last year. So he's been a Seahawk for a year, and he did play a little bit last season. He was active for most of the season, but it was only 57 offensive snaps and 59 special team snaps. So he played a game worth of football. It's also worth noting he was not initially picked up as a UDFA by the Seahawks. The Cleveland Browns signed him, and the Browns later let him go, and the Seahawks signed him in late July. So he was not even our initial UDFA. It's also worth noting that even though he played tackle in college for the most part, he was considered a center coming out, and he's been considered a center ever since he joined the Seahawks. They even have him listed as a center here when we signed him, even though they initially had him listed as a tackle. And you go to Pro Football Focus, it's a small sample size, so you can't really take anything away from it, but it's really not that bad for a rookie season as a UDFA with terrible teammates, right? Like he's got Laken Tomlinson to his left. He's got a rotating, or not a revolving door of three guys who are not very good on his right side. He's got whatever the heck is going on at right tackle from game to game for the Seahawks. Like, who can really blame him for not being very good? But this really isn't that bad, right? Like, no penalties, didn't allow any sacks at least. I'm not saying it's stellar, but honestly, it wasn't, it makes sense why we would at least see him as a future piece on this team, even if we don't view him as a starter. So he had about 50 reps last year at center, and it wasn't terrible. It would have been hard for him to stand out on an offensive line that bad, because offensive line is all about continuity and having familiarity with what your teammates are doing. Now, if we peel back the onion a little bit back to college, where he was at North Dakota State, you can see some better results. And again, Pro Football Focus, whatever. I understand they're not going to get everything perfect, but they, by their metric, he improved pretty much every year that he was at North Dakota State. Although 2023 was the only season he actually played a full season's worth of snaps, graded out very well. And by the way, he was a left tackle there. So he did change position when he got to the pros, mostly because his arms are too short to play tackle. Makes sense. Standard stuff. Same thing we're doing with Gray's Abel right now. And the Gray's Abel, that name is very apropos to bring up at the moment, because when Jalen Sundell was playing for the um, North Dakota State Bison, he was teammates and played with Gray Zabel. In fact, when Jalen Sundell left North Dakota State, Gray Zabel took over his left tackle position. And you can see the accomplishments he had as a player in college, 3-time FCS champion on a great FCS team that is competing pretty much every year. First team All MVFC and first team FCS All American in 2023. So good set of accomplishments. And maybe that's what it is. Maybe we want Sundell out there because we feel like having him and Zabel out there at the same time is going to be beneficial because they know each other so well. Like I said, offensive line play, more so than the individual levels of talent of the players, can be about familiarity and trust and an understanding where players are going to be and when they're going to be there, so you know when you need to be there. Maybe it's that simple. I wonder how much they're factoring that into the equation here when trying to get him on the field. So much so that they're willing to have him move positions, kind of. We did play him at center for the most part last year. Now, the final thing I wanted to take a look at here is his pre-draft measurables. Now, some of these are from the combine, some of them are from his pro day, but I wanted to take a look at these at face value for a minute here. First, if you go to Mock Draftable, let me just say this: they don't have the short key or shortcut to evaluate him against other offensive guards or centers. They can only compare him to other tackles or linemen, which is dumb because he's not an NFL tackle. It should definitely be able to, with one click, compare him to guards or centers. Let me just put that out there. But you can see that these are the things that he actually did at the combine, and everything else is something that he did at his pro day. So I actually went through manually and got his percentiles in these categories compared to offensive guards. So this is all guards, to be clear. Anybody who goes to the combine as a guard, which is not perfect because a lot of players go to the combine as a tackle and they end up playing guard in the NFL. And sometimes it's for very obvious reasons that everybody knew about, but they still get listed as a tackle at the combine. Nevertheless, let's work with what we have here. Let's zoom in a little bit. So he's 6'5", which by the standard of the guard position, and that's left and right, he's taller than average, but not radically so. 74th percentile. He's 301 pounds, which is definitely light for a guard, especially a right guard. Compared to all guards, it's 11th percentile, but if you compared him to right guards, you'd probably be looking at more like 6th percentile. Right guards tend to be bigger than left guards. He is undersized. That doesn't have to be a bad thing if you're trying to run a scheme based around mobility, which we probably are. His arms, 33 1/8 inch long. It's slightly below average for a guard, but should be workable. There's no reason why 42nd percentile has to be a world-ending problem. Hands kind of small. This should be 9.5 inch hands, so that should actually be like that. 9.5 inch hands, 22nd percentile. Not very big. Not necessarily worrisome, though. His 40 time was good, 5.19, which is 73rd percentile, and you can see his splits. Now, only a few players have ever had their 20-yard split measured, so I wouldn't take that this seriously, but you look at these raw speed numbers, 68th percentile, 82nd percentile, 73rd percentile. He can move pretty well. Now, for his weight, he's probably about average. Pound for pound, he's maybe even a little below average in terms of his ability to move in a straight line. But the point is, this is an athletic, good mover at the guard position compared to other guards. This guy moves, which is notable because, again, we're talking about a right guard here. Those are the guys who typically don't move so well. He had a really good shuttle time, the 20-yard shuttle, 4.58, 83rd percentile. His three-cone, 7.63, 73rd percentile, well above average. Vert and broad were both well above average as well, so he's got some explosiveness. Bench press was about average, 26. Point I'm making is that despite this guy going undrafted and not being a particularly sought-after prospect, he is a notably good athlete. And maybe we're seeing something with his ability to utilize that athleticism that we are not seeing with Anthony Bradford, who is a phenomenal athlete, but he's a little shaky out there when trying to utilize that ability. And maybe we see something with Sundell that makes us think he'll be able to harness it better. But that's my rundown on Jalen Sundell right now. All right, so I'm going to get on out of here. Thanks for watching. Might post another, well, I probably will post another video later today if we're being real again. I'm in a nice flow here. We're just a couple days away from the first preseason game. We're 2 days away. And it's exciting, obviously. I know the Seahawks don't play for, I think, 9 days. And people are just ready for the games to get here. But we still got a little bit of work to do. I just wanted to talk about Sundell as much as possible because if he ends up being a starter on this offensive line, that is something that that very much is going to catch me by surprise, especially if he's starting at guard. I wouldn't have been shocked by him starting at center because I know there's some hype there. People like him. Him starting at guard, though, that's off the bingo. That's off the bingo board for sure. That's I don't think I could have gotten odds on that one. That's my rundown of him at this time. That's the best I can do. Let me know what you guys think. Streaming on Twitch later tonight. I might do an afternoon stream as well. Sometimes I do. A lot of the time I end up not being able to do it. But we're starting Peace Walker tonight. We finished Snake Eater. So if you want to see me play more Metal Gear Solid for this marathon leading up to the release of Delta in about a month, Peace Walker starts tonight. Come watch. Probably going to marathon it. Probably going to be like a 5 or 6 hour session. I don't know Peace Walker very well. I'm just going to straight up say that. It's a lot of the stuff is going to be unfamiliar to me. So if that sounds like fun to you, come check it out. See you guys later. Go Hawks. More stuff coming soon.